Have you ever really thought about what happens when an illegal gambling website gets blocked? It's not nearly as simple as just flipping a switch. Today, we're diving deep into the hidden tech that's being used in the global war against offshore gambling. We've all been there, right? You type in a website, the page just spins, and you move on. But behind that little connection failed message, there is often a massive hidden battle taking place. Because taking these sites down isn't just about turning something off. It's a full-blown, ongoing technological arms race between government regulators all over the world and these incredibly quick, unlicensed operators. And believe me, the stakes are sky high. But why is this fight so critical? Why pour all this technology and effort into it? Let's break down what's really on the line in this invisible war. This goes way beyond just stopping a few bets. The European Commission has flagged this whole sector as a huge risk for money laundering and even for financing terrorism. At the same time, governments are losing out on billions in tax dollars. And the players themselves? They're facing everything from rigged games to having their personal data stolen. It's gotten so bad that U.S. regulators are now pushing the Department of Justice to make this a top priority. So, to fight back, authorities are literally trying to build a digital wall. Let's peel back the layers and look at their first lines of defense. Okay, so the most common tool in the toolbox is DNS blocking. The easiest way to think about this is to imagine the internet's DNS system as a giant digital phone book. This technique basically finds the address for an illegal website and just erases it. So when you try to visit, your browser has absolutely nowhere to go. But here's the catch. DNS blocking is pretty good against the average person who just stumbles upon a site. But for anyone who's even a little bit tech savvy, it's a piece of cake to get around. You can just switch to a public DNS server from Google or Cloudflare or, just fire up a VPN and you're through in seconds. It's really more of a speed bump than a solid wall. Right, so since DNS blocking is so easy to beat, regulators add another layer, IP blocking. This one is less about the website's address and more about your address. It looks at your IP, figures out where you are in the world, and if you're in a restricted country, boom, blocked. And this brings us right back to that classic cat and mouse game. Sure, IP blocking can effectively put a digital wall around an entire country, but the countermove is just as easy. Use a VPN or a proxy server. The moment you mask your location, that block becomes totally useless. Now, when those first couple of layers fail, some authorities decide it's time to bring out the heavy artillery, Deep Packet Inspection, or DPI. This is like going from just reading the address on an envelope to actually ripping it open and reading all the mail inside. It scrutinizes the actual content of your internet traffic. DPI is, without a doubt, incredibly powerful. It's used by countries with really strict internet controls, like China and Iran. But that power comes at a serious cost. We're talking huge privacy concerns, the risk of accidentally blocking legitimate websites, and it requires a massive amount of expensive infrastructure. It works, for sure, but it's very controversial. Blocking a website is one thing, but what if you stop trying to block the door and instead you just follow the money? That is exactly what payment blocking is all about. Regulators go directly to the banks and payment providers, like Visa or MasterCard, and tell them to reject any transaction that's headed to a known illegal gambling operator. They are trying to cut off the financial oxygen. And of course, the battlefield has moved right onto our phones. Take the Netherlands, for example. Their gaming authority, the KSA, has already yanked 20 illegal gambling apps from the app stores just this year. And a lot of these apps are tricky. They might look like a harmless game or even steal the logo of a real licensed casino. Okay, so we've seen the digital weapons being used in this war. Now let's take a quick trip around the world and see how they're actually being deployed on the global battlefronts. And what's really interesting is seeing the completely different approaches. You got Italy, which relies heavily on IP and payment blocks. Then there's Brazil, which is fighting this endless war against what they call domain cycling. That's where operators just keep hopping to new web addresses. And then you have Singapore, which, as we know, uses that really powerful DPI technology. Let's zoom in on Brazil for a second. After they legalized sports betting, they launched an absolutely massive crackdown. We're talking over 5,000 illegal sites blocked. They banned risky payment methods like credit cards and crypto, and they're forcing all licensed operators to use the national payment system. It is an all-out blitz to clean up their new market. And then you have Singapore. Talk about quiet and precise. With their super efficient tech-heavy model using deep packet inspection, they have managed to block over 3,800 different gambling websites. That number alone just shows you the sheer scale of their enforcement. So, with all these high-tech efforts, you'd think the regulators would be winning, right? Well, not exactly. These illegal operators are still thriving. So how are they doing it? Let's look at their counter-moves. Their main tactic is brutally simple and honestly incredibly effective. Mirror sites. A regulator seizes one domain name, and within hours, the operator just launches an identical clone on a new web address and redirects all their traffic. It is a game of digital whack-a-mole that never, ever ends. And remember those VPNs we talked about? They are the ultimate escape hatch for users. I mean, just look at this. When Brazil briefly blocked X, what used to be Twitter, VPN usage in the country shot up by 1,600% in a single day. It just proves that the second a digital door gets closed, people find a window almost instantly. So all of this brings us to the future, because the technology on both sides of this fight is evolving fast, and the next battlefield is going to look completely different. Think about it. Today's fight is all about DNS blocking and payment surveillance. But tomorrow's battle? That's going to be about regulators using predictive AI to spot illegal sites before they even launch. And on the other side, operators will be using anonymous crypto payments that are basically impossible to trace. And get this, while a regulator can seize a .com from a central authority, they have no way to seize a decentralized .crypto domain that isn't controlled by anyone. The game is changing, big time. Which leaves us with this one last big question to think about. As the enforcement tools get more powerful and the ways to get around them get more sophisticated, are we actually building a safer internet? Or are we just pushing this whole conflict deeper into the shadows, creating a war that's even more invisible?